Hello, hello.
Hi.
In my show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Deanna Sison. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is one of my mini series, Filipino Hustle Fridays. I'm Julia Holly, owner of JH Creative, and I'm excited about today's episode. Thank you so much for hopping on to talk about your story.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So briefly, I'm just going to do a quick intro just because, to give people an idea of what you do. And then, of course, we'll dive in. So Deanna Sison is the owner of Mestiza and Lady Victory and of Little Skillet and Victory Hall. As 4 businesses, she actively supports the revitalization of the Soma Filipinas Filipino Heritage District. She combines her Filipino heritage with global culinary experiences to create inclusive dining. She earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the University of South Florida. There's a Florida connection there. So I can't believe it. When I saw that you went to USF, I was like, what? She was in Florida. And now you're in San Francisco. We switched.
We did.
I'm from San Francisco originally.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. Yeah, I grew up in Daly City.
No way. Okay, great. We're neighbors.
Yeah. So, okay, you mentioned that you were born in Florida, right? And then tell us a little bit about that growing up there, and then you moved over to Germany.
Yeah. I was born in Florida, born and raised in Florida till the age of about 10. So my parents moved from the Philippines. My dad went to school to become a doctor in the Philippines, moved to the States, brought my parents met in the Philippines, and then they first moved to Arizona, and then ended up moving to Florida, and that's where I was born. So yeah, and then when I was about 10, it's funny because my dad, he was a doctor, like I said, like his family really pushed him to be a doctor. But he really just wanted to be a soldier all his life. And so late in life, which is really unusual, he decided to join the Army, the US Army, partly out of like allegiance, just really wanting to serve the country. He just had that in him. So he joined the military late, and we moved to Germany when I was 10, and stayed there until I was about 19.
Wow, that must have been a culture shock from Florida to Germany.
Huge culture shock. Yeah, yeah. So you got also brown girl in Germany.
Yeah.
People don't think that you speak English or are American. Like they're very confused about what you are. So it was really hard in the beginning, I have to say. My parents immediately stuck me in a German ballet school. So it was, getting into a room of other 10-year-olds and you look so different. And I just stuck out like a sore thumb, but I had some skills. I was actually a pretty good dancer. So it was mostly like a curiosity thing. So it was just an interesting experience, like to have grown up from age 10 all the way up until 19. So it was interesting, but overall, like a really, really great experience that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
Wow. And did you learn how to speak German?
Yeah, I can speak German, at least conversationally. I can speak German pretty well.
Oh my goodness.
It doesn't really do me any good though, because like most Germans I know speak perfect English, and it's like, why couldn't it have been a more useful language? But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, okay, having to move there, being there for 9 years, and I'm glad you eventually adjusted, but that must have been a culture shock for your family, being Filipino and just smiley and friendly, right? And then I've heard in Germany, like they don't smile, like they.
No,
right? It's a European thing. I don't know.
It is. I think like, well, I think that the impression of Americans, in general, let alone like Filipino Americans, is they feel like they're too friendly, and I think that's maybe like the perception of a lot of Europeans of Americans, like we're overly friendly, and in probably other countries too. But yeah, so it was, there's just a lot of cultural differences. and really hard to figure out, like identity wise, where I would fit in. But over the years, I ended up actually hanging out more with Germans than I did Americans. So I feel like, there's a lot of me that's a little also European and just mindset.
Yeah.
To like lifestyle, and that's kind of what drove me to pursue hospitality.
Oh, is that when you started getting into culinary? I mean, or when you went to USF, is that where it all? Okay, so
Yeah.
What brought you to choose USF?
USF was just so I had my closest relative lived in Sarasota, which is close to Tampa. And so when I moved from Germany, like I went to go live with her, and that was just the closest school. And so I just ended up back in Florida. So yeah. And I wasn't studying culinary. I studied fine arts. So definitely creative realm, but it wasn't culinary focused. But I have to say that from my first job was at Burger King, like American Burger King in Germany.
I love that story.
That was like the age 14. And I just remember that job so super well. That was very formative for me. But from that, I've always had a job in the food service industry, and then it, went from flipping burgers to, working in baking, and then serving and busing and bartending. And, I've had a job in every aspect of hospitality, or like restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know you actually wanted to own multiple restaurants? Like at some point you'd be owning 4 restaurants?
No. I mean, actually, no, I take that back, because I feel like every foodie's dream is to one day own a restaurant, right? Like, like everybody who loves food and just having dinner parties and hosting, and where that's your love language, basically, is just feeding people. So like many Filipinos, it's always got a plate of food in your face. And that's love, right? And so I think it's in a lot of foodies, just like, oh, that'd be awesome just to do this for a living, right? And just like to be able to make people happy by feeding them, and just seeing the smiles on their face, and just delivering great hospitality. So yeah.
A true Filipino spirit right there. So, okay, then what brought you to San Francisco?
It was just, I'd always been drawn to San Francisco. I think had I not been so hasty in my decision just to get into the closest college to where I was at the time in Florida, I probably I should have waited and just went to school here in San Francisco. It's just the only place I feel like in all of the states is, where diversity is actually appreciated, and not just, ethnicity wise, but also just culturally, economically, just in all ways. To me, it felt like it would be the most diverse place to go. And so it was either that or New York. And I love the ocean and the beach. So it's like, I'm going to go to the West Coast. So yeah, this is where I landed.
West Coast and West Coast, I have to say. No, yeah. In San Francisco, I grew up there, and I took a lot of things for granted now, having moved away and everything. But it's really true. Like, I experienced culture shock leaving the Bay Area, being a little bit, I mean, I was in SoCal for a little bit after that, but moving and leaving California and being in the South, I've grown to love Tallahassee and North Florida, but I mean, the diversity, I definitely miss how welcoming everybody was to all the cultures, right? Yeah. So that's what I loved about San Francisco.
Yeah, I wonder about that sometimes, like leaving the Bay Area, like how that would feel, like when you're, like you want to go other places and also represent, but then you end up missing so much. Like the Bay Area has so much to offer. It's just like the culinary experiences and being able to eat whatever you crave at the moment is like heaven for me.
That's what I missed. I didn't realize like how convenient it was. Like within a small square mile radius of San Francisco, you can eat all the great food in the world.
I know. Yeah. I love that about the Bay Area.
Well, and speaking of food, obviously, okay, can you tell us a little bit about like the timeline of like how it progressed with the 4 companies?
Sure. Okay. So let's see. Graduated
Like
college.
Mestiza. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Moved out west. And I studied film actually.
Oh.
Fine arts with an emphasis in film. And so my thought was like, I'm going to come out to the West Coast and get into some aspect of film. And I landed in San Francisco, and I was combing through Craigslist ads, and I found this one post that was like, oh my God, this is my dream job. This is my dream job. It was a small post, and it says something to the effect of like, looking for a production assistant for a cooking show producer. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. It's combining both of my 2 favorite things. And then I applied for the job. I wrote this amazing letter. The other thing was like, it was for PBS cooking shows. And I'm like, I grew up watching PBS cooking shows. I love them. I'll come home from school and just watch cooking shows.
Was it Yan Can Cook?
Exactly. It was like Yan Can Cook and Julia Childs and like all those Master Chefs, like all those really old school ones where it's not flashy. There's not like a lot of graphics. No, it's not a contest. It's just like straight up cooking.
Yeah.
I interviewed for the job. And actually, I wrote this really long letter, and of course, the owner of the company was like, "Yeah, like come in right away. You already know what we do." And it was like for a production assistant job that paid maybe like $9 an hour. It was like barely anything, but I didn't care. I was like, I'm gonna do this. And so that was a 5-year long stint of working on a lot of great series, being behind the scenes. We had series where we featured cookbook authors, culinary instructors, different series for culinary instructors, a different series for just focusing on, it was Cook Off America, where we go to food festivals locally. And so like I got like this window to every single aspect of the culinary world, whether it be, and it was just wonderful because like everybody just gravitated and had a passion for food in whatever way that was. Like it didn't have to be a restaurant chef, but it could be an instructor, or it could be a cookbook author, or it could be somebody who is like entering a cook-off. And so, so that kind of got me like exposed more to like those things. And then, from that, I did that for 5 years, and then decided that I needed to have corporate experience, and just wanted to try the corporate world for a little bit. So I did something similar at Williams-Sonoma. So then I got a job at Williams-Sonoma, and as a producer for photo shoots. So we'd go out on location, and so all those beautiful catalogs that you see, like with all their brands, like Williams-Sonoma and Pottery Barn and Pottery Barn Teen and all this. Like we would physically go out into beautiful houses around the Bay Area, take out furniture from a room, put in furniture, paint the walls, and take photos. And that would be like,
That's awesome.
They don't do that anymore. They do everything in a studio. But so it was where I had to be responsible for our photo crews. So I would always style them out with like beautiful breakfast and then like snacks, and just make sure that they were well fed and well nourished. And so there was a stylist assistant on one of those crews who was like, you would be the perfect person to open up, be a partner for her boyfriend at the time. Because you have the production skills, the producer skills, and also you know your way around food. Basically, it's like you have those skills. Like you should partner with my boyfriend, who's a chef, and he's trying to open up a restaurant. And so I went and like met with him, and literally quit my job the next day. And I was like, I'm doing this. It was like my opportunity. It was my foot in the door, and it just like everything resonated. And that's how the first restaurant began. So my first restaurant is called Farmer Brown. It was in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. And
Tenderloin.
Really long stint. Yeah. So we were there 12, 13 years, something like that.
Oh my
That was the
gosh.
first. Yeah. And
That
that's
is
then that,
impressive.
what's that?
I just tenderloin, like,
Yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know what the tenderloin is, that's pretty isn't that like where
It's
the
a
questionable things?
very gritty neighborhood,
Yeah.
probably the grittiest neighborhood in San Francisco. But I feel like the brand Farmer Brown, which was essentially farm to table soul food, is just a beautiful, beautiful concept. And we were
Yeah.
just like a real, uh, I don't know, it was just a special place because it was, we were always, diversity was always like at the top of our values. And so
Mhm.
like it definitely, we just, I don't know, like it just was a special place at a special time, and it really spun off into a lot of different projects.
Yeah, and 12 to 13 years, that's a good amount of time running that. So that's awesome. So, and running a restaurant is very competitive in San Francisco. Like there's so many. We talked
Yeah.
about great
Yeah.
food and everything. So like
Yeah.
that didn't phase you. Like it sounds you were like,
Um,
I'm game for this. I can do this.
yeah. Let's see. I know. I try to think like back to just what the feeling was. I mean, it was just such an exciting time to start a restaurant, and just like the idea of it. And part of that, there's a lot of naivety around it because, there's the romance of opening up a restaurant, and then there's the reality. So it was like 2 years into the restaurant, I was just like, I don't know, like there's so much I didn't know. Like I knew everything front of house, but actually like running a business is like a whole nother thing. So it was a really, I felt like I got like my MBA on the job because,
Yeah.
like I didn't even know how to read a P&L in the beginning. I didn't know how or even why we needed to conduct inventory. I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about menu costing. Like I knew none of these things, right? Like we lucked out in the beginning because we were quite popular from the get-go. But by year 2, when that honeymoon phase kind of starts to expire, then you really need to get into the grit of the business, and that was like really, really like some of the hardest years of my life, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, what year was that? Because I know
Mm.
you survived through COVID. It's like through 2020. That
Oh
must have been a
yeah.
tough year
So
for
that's
you.
a whole nother thing. So Farmer Brown Days, that we started in 2006. So we
Okay.
did go through 2008 and 9, which is pretty bad years. And then
Oh yeah.
yeah, like probably 2010 is when I started to be like, oh gosh, like I need to figure out how to run a business. and then yeah, so that 2000, I want to say 2013 or 14 is when I opened up Little Skillet. So Little Skillet was the lunch offshoot of Farmer Brown. And we called it Little Skillet. We were inspired to call it Little Skillet because our friends who owned this nightclub, who used to be regular customers at Farmer Brown, wanted us to take over the kitchen in their nightclub because of liquor license. Yeah, with the liquor license, there's a certain regulations where you have to serve food. And so like, yeah, sure, let's do something in this kitchen. And so we focused on the dish of chicken and waffles, and called it Little Skillet because really it was just a tiny kitchen, and then it had a window that went out into this San Francisco alley, and it was just like this charming little spot. And so people would just come to the window and line up for chicken and waffles all day long. And so
Oh,
that's
cool.
the origin of Little Skillet. Meanwhile, there was, nightclub. We'd open up at the nighttime for the nightclub because we had to. But we'd maybe sell like $100 worth of fries. Like nobody's eating at night. So we built a little lunch business during the day with that kitchen.
Oh, awesome. You
Yeah,
pretty much like kind of rolled with the punches, like just
totally.
along the way.
Yeah. That's kind of how
So
I roll. It's just like, opportunity presents itself.
yeah.
And very organically, like,
Mhm.
it's more like the opportunities kind of inspire me versus like having like this idea of like what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do next. So yeah.
I love how spontaneous you are too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we can relate in that way. We go by opportunity. But tell me a little bit about like how you came up with Mestiza. Because I remember I asked like, does that mean you're Mestiza?
Yeah, so Mestiza came about because, like, again, like sort of like an organic opportunity. Being in the South of Market, Soma district of San Francisco, I had a friend who was running a spot, and it was just, it was failing, and he's like, "Do you want to just take over the space?" And so I looked at the space. It is something I was familiar with. It had an outdoor patio, which is so rare in the middle of San Francisco, especially Soma. So I just jumped at the chance. And then I wanted to do something that was a little bit more, spoke more to my heritage. And we were taking over basically a taqueria that had been there for like 20 years. And so we wanted to merge and highlight the Filipino and Mexican connection. There's been a trade route for 200 years, colonized by the same people. And so there's a lot of foodways that are very similar, and there is a strong connection. So the first iteration of Mestiza, you're looking at a photo of the second iteration, but the first iteration was we called it Mestiza Taqueria. And then in the second iteration, post-COVID, we went to a new spot because we lost our lease during COVID.
Oh, okay.
So the new spot, we dropped the taqueria, and now it's just Mestiza.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. It's very tiny.
So
it's a very small space. It's maybe seats 30 people back there, but it's a really charming patio, and we love it.
And didn't it get featured in Eat SF? I think I saw that post. If that is the right,
I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The food looks amazing. I'm jealous. I can't.
Yeah. So with Mestiza, this new iteration, like post-COVID, COVID times really informed like how we were going to reinvent Mestiza in this new location. And so we wanted to focus a lot on health and well-being. And so there's a lot of disease related to food in the Filipino community. So we wanted to do something that was plant forward, and less fatty, more whole ingredients, less sugar, just, a lighter version but the flavors, we're hoping to maintain the flavors so that you're not missing, it's familiar, but you're also not missing, the Filipino flavors.
Oh, I love that. I know it's tricky and challenging with Filipino culinary. There's so much sugar. They throw sugar.
Yeah, I know.
Lots of pork.
Very, very pork heavy, right?
Exactly. And you have this thing called so there's Victory Hall. Let me make sure I share this because this is a really cool concept too. You have this mobile bar, right?
Oh yeah. Well, maybe you want to start with Victory Hall. Okay, so Victory Hall. So I told you before, like Little Skillet had its origins in a nightclub.
Right.
Well, at some point, that nightclub started to attract an element. There was a shooting and there was a stabbing.
Oh, wow.
So the landlord told the nightclub to get out and then offered me to take over the space. And so we converted it from like nightclub to a very open, friendly, local bar event space. So that's what Victory Hall is now. So Victory Hall and Skillet are in the same. We're in the same building.
Now I understand you invested well in great photography and just the interior design of it. Like with your Williams-Sonoma background now, I'm just like, oh, it makes perfect sense. So nice.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And that takes up a lot of investment too.
Yeah.
Like to pull that all together. Like, what would you say to those early stage entrepreneurs, learning what you already learned? What would you say to those who have to, like considering what to do for their business? Like, how did you come to the decisions you need to make?
Everything is kind of bootstrapped, like I don't have any investors, it's just being an independent restaurant owner is really, really hard. And I love anybody who has the guts to do it. And if they do it, that they're already a creative minded and resourceful. So for me, like I am a bargain hunter. So So I would always, I'd be just combing the ads for used equipment. You can see that the style is very rustic modern-ish. So just pulling, like using all your resources, like there's so much stuff that's circulating out there. There's no need to buy anything brand new or at retail value. And so, I happen to like doing that and like looking for good stuff, but it's not for everybody. But I would say, especially if you're a restaurant, like never go into a space brand new. Like you'll sink so much money into doing that. Like take over already existing space, that has already been permitted, that the floor drains are where they need to be, the 3 compartment sinks are where they need to be. Like if you have to do that from scratch, even though that might be a nice thing to completely design your kitchen, it's going to cost you so much. And there's always going to be something, and there's always going to be an inspector that wants something different. So you don't want to do that. So that would be my advice. If anybody wants to get into the restaurant business, take over an existing spot already.
That's great, because that they've probably, passed all the permitting and everything.
And it's such a headache. So if you can avoid that, not just the expense, but literally the time it takes to get things scheduled and come back. And it's luck of the draw what kind of inspector you get. Some of them are really easygoing, and some are very onerous. And so it just delays things and like time is money. So I would say just get into a spot that's already been built out.
Yeah. So I know we went back, to the earlier days, and then so the second iteration, like how did you get through COVID? Like how was that whole period for you?
Really hard.
Yeah.
How did we get through COVID? So we closed everything down. Okay. So we closed everything down. Little Skillet maybe closed down only for a week. It was a takeout business essentially. And so it was easy to kind of, not easy, but we found a way to make that work. And so literally it was me, one cook, and maybe one other person. What saved us a lot, were the getting some contracts to do really large orders for seniors or homeless, unhoused population, and just serving like we prepared like 300 box meals.
Wow.
So we did that frequently to get us through. And that, I don't think without that, we probably wouldn't have survived. But then we did a lot of to-go business. We designed boxes that we were delivering, hand delivering to people's houses. we threw kind of a lot of spaghetti at the wall. And so, we somehow cobbled it together. We borrowed a lot of money, like these EIDL loans, disaster relief loans, PPP loans. And that really was also the saving grace, because like a lot of that, when we thought things were going to come back in 2022 and 2023, even 2024, when things, especially in the Bay Area, were really slow to recover. Like we still haven't found our full recovery yet. Like San Francisco, I think, is in the top 5 of slowest cities to recover from COVID, because the behaviors have changed. Everyone still work from home. So we don't have the people out there in the foot traffic to really support a lot of these local small businesses. So you see places closing left and right. But since we borrowed a lot of money, like a lot of that we were able to, cobble it together to like get through the tough times, like the past 3-4 years. Finally, 5, it feels like it's okay. Like it feels a little bit more like it's there's a lot of focus on recovery. So it feels a little bit more, I don't know, exciting.
Starting to get that energy back. Yeah. And then, people being required to go back to the office, that kind of thing. And but so okay, talk about resilience, talk about the hustle to survive all of that. Like there's a reason why I did not get into the restaurant business. That's the toughest. Anybody who wants to run a restaurant or some type of catering or like that was the hardest, one of the hardest business to get into. So, and then you mentioned you manage a team of 25. That's another level of challenges in itself. Like there's a lot of turnover in the service industry, that kind of thing. Yeah. So how have you managed to keep up with retention or team culture?
again, like you get just getting super resourceful, being very creative. Like it helps to have multiple businesses so that the people that I hire, I can offer them full-time work, and so it's, part-time here, part-time there, makes a full-time job. So that helps with retention, because a lot of people in the hospitality industry, they have second and third jobs. And so, I just try to make it so that they can just have one job, essentially, like,
Yeah.
so that's helped. Yeah, company culture is definitely something that we work hard at, and just trying to maintain a really positive work environment. And so it matters, like you have to be a good fit for the team too. But it hasn't been without its challenges. Like, I think, again, post-COVID, there's a lot of behaviors that have changed and expectations that have changed, especially from a younger generation. So it's constant.
Yeah.
Like half my time is probably working on managing the managers.
Yes, I get it. So, well, I mean, believe it or not, it's like I said, it flies by. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're out of time.
But it's okay. I don't have to run yet if
Okay.
you're cool to still stick around for a little bit, but I want to be respectful of your time. And so if you were to wrap it up, because I want to include, where we've been sharing your contact information and everything, what would you say as words of wisdom and your advice to anyone who's considering entering or starting a business, especially Filipinos,
I think my saying has always been, and it's kind of a mindset thing. It's I'll figure it out. Like people will hear me say that like 10 times a day, like I'll figure it out. You really have to have curiosity. I feel like having curiosity is really going to help you in any situation, because that will support that mindset of like, I'll figure it out. Like you have to be curious how to do it. And that's, I feel like, what's kept me going about like, well, how do I do that? Like, how do I get better? How do I improve this? And it's just how, because that will go a long way. So keep curious, I would say.
I love that. That was so unique. So for people who want to, like, you do catering, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do
Yep.
events, and you have a venue. It's an amazing portfolio of services. So for people who want to reach out to you, they need to, of course, check out your site. Is there anything upcoming that you want to also highlight that's happening soon?
There's always stuff going on. Let's see. We're doing a lot of graduations right now. So we have packages at Victory Hall for if there's, a party of 20, 30, like we have that. There's always that group that wants to celebrate something, but they don't want to go to a formal setting and sit down, and they want it to be kind of convivial and private.
Yeah.
And eat and drink, and so I feel like that's kind of like what I do. It's like I want to provide the space for people to be able to enjoy each other and celebrate. So Victory Hall is great for that, and we're doing graduation packages there. And then Mestiza, of course, we do these beautiful Kamayan feasts, which is perfect for groups that have something special to celebrate. So yeah, so we're all about the graduations this month of May.
I know. Congratulations to the graduating class of 2025. My daughter's graduating this year. I was looking for a Filipino catering company here. I wish you were here.
Oh. Wait, your daughter is graduating from
the Lincoln High, and she's actually going to go to UCF.
She's young.
She's going to UCF to Orlando.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my son graduated, but it's eighth grade.
Oh.
Yeah, but their graduating class we're gonna have a party at Victory Hall.
Cool. Jealous. All the parents are signing up for that. Well, thank you so much, Deanna. Thank you so much for telling us more about your story. And for those of you who catch it, both West Coast, East Coast, y'all should check out all her places and her website. Deanna, sit tight. I'm going to conclude and try to pull up this little outro graphic, and then we'll chat some more later. Thank you
Right.
so much
Awesome to talk
again.
to you, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you.